This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Heatwave alert. Record temperatures loom over central and eastern U.S. Forecasters are warning of a dangerous and potentially record-breaking heat wave that will affect much of the central and eastern U.S. next week. The heat wave could set records from Texas to New England and put people at risk if they are not prepared for the extreme temperatures. Every day of extreme heat in the U.S. claims about 154 lives, and climate change is exacerbating the risk. Officials across the country have been planning ahead for ways to keep vulnerable residents cool, including children, elderly people, those with underlying health issues, people without air conditioning, unhoused residents, and outdoor workers. Some states have implemented creative solutions, such as text message warnings, distributing free air conditioners, and using ice immersion to quickly cool people who get sick from heat. Areas with more extreme heat, such as Jacksonville and Las Vegas, have robust summer heat plans in place, including the opening of cooling centers and warnings for vulnerable communities. Experts also highlight the need for structural changes in cities to combat the heat island effect caused by pavement and lack of trees. As the heat wave spreads across the central and eastern United States, it is crucial that people take necessary precautions to stay safe. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Supreme Court overturns bump stock ban, analyzing the fallout and future of gun control. The Supreme Court has struck down a ban on bump stocks, the gun accessories used in the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. The ban, implemented by the Trump administration, was overturned by the court's conservative majority, who found that the ban overstepped executive power. Bump stocks attached to semi-automatic rifles, allowing them to simulate the rapid fire of automatic weapons. The ban was implemented in response to the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, in which the gunman used bump stocks to fire over 1,000 rounds into a crowd, killing dozens and injuring hundreds. The ruling has reopened the political debate on gun control in the U.S., with Democrats decrying the decision, and some Republicans supporting it. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Arrests made in Louisiana double murder case, unraveling the alleged roles of Daniel Callahan and Victoria Cox. A man has been arrested in Mississippi and his alleged accomplice has been arrested in Jackson in connection with the murders of a mother and her 3-year-old child in Laranger, Louisiana. The man, Daniel Callahan, was booked into a county detention center in Mississippi, while the woman, Victoria Cox, 32, was taken to jail in Jackson. It is unclear at this time what role Cox played in the murders. Authorities received a tip that Callahan may have had an accomplice, leading them to Cox. The investigation is ongoing, and it is unsure whether the suspects will be extradited back to Louisiana. The Hinds County District Attorney's Office is supporting the investigation and praised the efforts of law enforcement in saving lives. The FBI is also investigating the case, which includes signs of human trafficking. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Bankruptcy denied. The future of Infowars and Alex Jones' assets unveiled. A bankruptcy judge in Texas has rejected a proposed plan to liquidate Infowars, the company owned by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. However, the judge did allow for the liquidation of Jones' personal assets. The judge stated that denial of the bankruptcy plan was in the best interest of the creditors, and that the families of Sandy Hook victims, who have not received payment of the approximately $1.5 billion in damages against Jones, should try to claim what they are owed through state courts. The rejection of the bankruptcy plan leaves many questions unanswered, including what happens next for Infowars, and what legal avenues remain for the victims' families to collect the money owed to them. The families of the Sandy Hook victims have been seeking justice and compensation for years, so despite the lingering questions, this decision does mark a significant step towards achieving that goal. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Tesla shareholders reinstate Elon Musk's $56 billion pay amid controversy and future visions. Tesla shareholders have approved Elon Musk's $56 billion pay package, which had been struck down by a Delaware judge earlier this year. The approval comes after a heated debate among powerful investors. with influential investors like Baron Capital and Jim Chanos publicly endorsing the package. Despite opposition from notable investors, such as Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund and the California Public Employees Retirement System, the compensation proposal received a majority of the votes. The approval of the compensation plan was met with relief from analysts, who had feared that a rejection would negatively impact Tesla's business and stock price. Musk had previously hinted that he might pursue other projects if the award was not reinstated. Analysts say that this removes a significant overhang on the stock and allows Tesla to focus on execution of its growth strategy. Musk also outlined his vision for the future of Tesla, including plans for the upcoming Tesla robotaxi and the Optimus humanoid robot. Additionally, Musk emphasized the importance of artificial intelligence and autonomy in Tesla's future. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Surviving pasteurization. NIH finds H5N1 bird flu in lab milk study amid outbreak. A new research study has found that a small amount of highly infectious H5N1 bird flu virus can survive the pasteurization process used to treat milk. The study, conducted by scientists at the National Institutes of Health, involved laboratory experiments and does not indicate that there is infectious H5N1 virus in milk from grocery stores. Despite this finding, officials have not detected any infectious virus in supermarket milk samples. The research comes as authorities continue to deal with an outbreak of H5N1 bird flu in dairy cattle across several states. The FDA has stated that the study reflects experimental conditions and should not be used to draw conclusions about the safety of the U.S. milk supply. However, they also note that in commercial dairy processing, milk from infected cows is likely mixed with milk from healthy cows, diluting the virus and reducing the risk. The FDA has not released the results of their study on pasteurizing raw milk for H5N1, but they emphasize that sound science is critical in informing food safety decisions. The agency is continuing to study the virus's ability to survive pasteurization and is working to validate the effectiveness of industrial pasteurization methods. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. McGregor out of UFC 303, Pereira vs. Prochazka now headline. Conor McGregor has withdrawn from the upcoming UFC 303 fight against Michael Chandler due to an undisclosed injury. The Irishman was initially set to face Chandler on June 29 in Las Vegas, but UFC President Dana White announced the change, stating that light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira will now face top-ranked challenger Jiri Prochazka in the main event. McGregor's injury has been confirmed by White, but the nature of the injury remains unknown. This development is significant for the UFC, as McGregor continues to be a strong draw for gate and pay-per-view sales despite being past his fighting prime at 35 years old. McGregor, who last fought in July 2021, has not won a fight in over 4 years, and has not won a title fight in nearly 8 years. Rumors about McGregor's withdrawal had been circulating for over a week, and it was later revealed that he sustained the injury a day or two before the news conference cancellation. McGregor's absence from the octagon has allowed him to focus on his business ventures and burgeoning acting career. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. R.E.M. reunites at Songwriters Hall of Fame 2024. Performances by Steely Dan, Timbaland, and SZA shine at the 2024 Songwriters Hall of Fame induction ceremony. R.E.M. shocked audiences with a reunion performance at the gala in New York City. The band members performed an acoustic version of their hit song, Losing My Religion. Other inductees at the event included Steely Dan and Timbaland. Hillary Lindsey and Dean Pitchford were also inducted. SZA received the Hal David Starlight Award, while Missy Elliott introduced Timbaland. The night ended with a performance of DeBarge's Rhythm of the Night, written by Diane Warren. Cindy Walker was posthumously inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Boeing under scrutiny. FAA probes 737 MAX incident and counterfeit parts issue with Southwest Spirit Aerosystems involved. Boeing is facing new investigations as the safety of its planes comes under scrutiny. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, is investigating a Boeing 737 MAX 8 flown by Southwest Airlines that experienced a potentially dangerous movement known as a Dutch roll, where the aircraft rocks side to side while in the air. No injuries were reported among the 175 passengers and 6 crew members on board. Boeing has referred questions about the incident to the airline and said it is cooperating with the investigation. In addition to this, the FAA is also investigating potentially falsified documents used to certify the titanium in Boeing planes. The issue came to light after a supplier to Spirit Aerosystems, a company that produces parts for Boeing, noticed holes from corrosion and discovered counterfeit records for the titanium. Both Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems said they have been working to address the issue and remove affected parts. Safety campaigners have raised concerns about the quality of recent Boeing planes, and the company has presented the FAA with an action plan to resolve the issues. The FAA and NTSB are working together to determine the causes of the incident and assess any potential implications for the aircraft's safety record. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Deadliest catch star Nick Mavar passes away at 59. Tragedy strikes again for reality series cast. Nick Mavar, a star of the Discovery Channel reality series Deadliest Catch and spin-offs such as Deadliest Catch, Siberian Winter, and Deadliest Catch, The Bait, has died at the age of 59 after suffering a medical emergency. The incident occurred at a boatyard in Naknek, Alaska, where Mavar was taken to a local hospital and pronounced dead. Mavar was a deckhand on the show for 16 years, appearing in 98 episodes before leaving in 2021, following a medical emergency involving his appendix. He had previously sued one of the boat owners, Sig Hansen, alleging that he did not receive prompt medical treatment during the pandemic, leading to severe complications. Mavar's passing is the latest in a series of tragic events to affect the Deadliest Catch cast, following the deaths of former co-stars Malin Reyes and Nick McGlashan in 2020. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Wells Fargo fires employees for faking work activity amid remote work challenges. The U.S. bank Wells Fargo has fired more than a dozen employees for allegedly simulating keyboard activity to give the impression that they were working. The employees were discharged after an investigation into allegations of keyboard simulation, which was said to create the impression of active work. It is unclear whether the workers were using home or office computers. The terminations were disclosed in filings with the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. The bank stated that it holds employees to the highest standards and does not tolerate unethical behavior. The employees were part of Wells Fargo's Wealth and Investment Management division, and the firings occurred amidst the ongoing pandemic, which forced many employees to work remotely or in hybrid roles. Wells Fargo allows flexible working and offers employees the opportunity to work from home on some days. The use of devices or software to simulate mouse activity, known as mouse movers or mouse jigglers, is widely available. Last month, just over a quarter of paid working days in the U.S. were work-from-home days. Major banks, such as Bank of America and Goldman Sachs, have taken a strict approach to working from home. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Meta streamlines leadership. Zuckerberg cuts VP ranks amid efficiency push. Meta's top brass is bracing for permanent efficiency measures, which will result in the trimming down of its vice president ranks. The company's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, aims to reduce the number of VPs from around 300 to 250, with 5 levels within the VP title. This move comes after the company's year of efficiency in 2023, which led to the layoff of over 20,000 Meta employees. The efficiency measures include semi-annual calibrations and formal annual performance reviews, where VPs are subjected to stack ranking, a performance evaluation process where peers are compared against each other to determine who has performed better. Additionally, managers are required to categorize 10% to 12.5% of their teams into lower performance groups, often leading to performance improvement plans. Despite strong growth in previous years, Meta continues to implement layoffs, Joining other major tech companies like Google, Microsoft, and Tesla, Zuckerberg's efforts have received praise from analysts and investors who have applauded his focus on efficiency. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024, extended mission. Boeing Starliner's delayed return and tests with NASA. Boeing and NASA have announced a delay in the return of the Starliner capsule Calypso from the International Space Station, ISS, to June 22. The mission, known as Boeing's Crew Flight Test, is being extended in order to test the spacecraft further. The original plan was for a 9-day mission, but it will now last at least 17 days. During this time, various tests will be conducted on the Starliner, including operating the capsule's hatch and firing its thrusters. The spacecraft has also experienced several helium leaks, but NASA assures that there is enough helium to support the return trip. The mission represents a final major step before NASA certifies Boeing to fly crew on operational 6-month missions. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Uncertain fate of Gaza hostages, Hamas, Israel, and the stalled peace talks. The fate of the remaining hostages in Gaza remains uncertain, according to a senior Hamas official. In an interview with CNN, Hamas spokesperson Osama Hamdan stated that no one has an idea of how many hostages are still alive, and that any deal to release them must include a permanent ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The U.S. believes that Hamas holds the key to the peace talks and has urged its leader Yahya Sinwar to end the war. Negotiations over a U.S.-backed proposal have intensified but stalled after Hamas presented changes to the document. Hamas insists on a permanent ceasefire and full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. The conflict has had a devastating impact on the Palestinians, with thousands killed and many displaced. The situation remains complicated, with Israel accusing Hamas of using civilians as human shields, and Hamas denying reports that its leader suggested the deaths of Palestinians were necessary sacrifices. The conflict between Israel and Hamas has resulted in the deaths of over 37,000 people in Gaza, according to Gaza's health ministry. The war has severely impacted the lives of Palestinians, with widespread hunger and a lack of access to essential supplies. Over 1 million Palestinians in Gaza could experience the highest level of starvation by mid-July. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. House Speaker Mike Johnson sues to enforce subpoena against AG Merrick Garland for Biden audio tapes. House Speaker Mike Johnson announced on Friday that in order to enforce a subpoena against Attorney General Merrick Garland to obtain audio recordings of President Joe Biden, he will take the issue to federal court. This move comes after the Justice Department declined to act on the House's contempt referral. Johnson disagreed with the DOJ's decision, calling it an example of the two-tiered system of justice under the Biden administration. The House had previously held Garland in contempt for not turning over the audio recordings from Biden's interview in Special Counsel Robert Hur's classified documents investigation. However, the DOJ cited their long-standing position of not prosecuting executive branch officials who withhold information subject to executive privilege from Congress. Republican lawmakers argue that access to the tapes would provide transparency and oversight in the investigation into a sitting U.S. president. CNN has also sued for access to the audio recordings. This decision was anticipated, as President Biden had invoked executive privilege to shield the recordings. The House next steps will now be to go to court to enforce the subpoena against Garland for access to the audio recordings. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. G7 Summit Focus: Tackling Migration Challenges with Italy and the U.S. on the front lines. Leaders of the group of 7 G7 countries are discussing the issue of migration at their summit in Italy. They are seeking ways to combat human trafficking and increase investment in countries from where migrants often embark on dangerous journeys to Europe. Italy, as the host country, is particularly interested in this topic, as it is a major route into the European Union for migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has emphasized the need for increased investment in African nations to reduce migratory pressure on Europe. More than 22,000 people have arrived in Italy by sea so far in 2024, according to UNHCR figures. The United States is also dealing with a growing number of migrants at its southern border. President Joe Biden has introduced new policies to curb migration after a bill failed to pass through Congress. However, these policies are facing legal challenges in the U.S. courts. The G7 leaders are discussing a coalition to fight against smuggling and human trafficking organizations. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. SpaceX aims for sky with 22 Starlink satellites, launch amid weather delays. SpaceX is set to launch 22 new Starlink satellites after several weather delays. The satellites will be launched atop a Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The launch is scheduled for a 3-hour window that opens at 5:07 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. SpaceX has a backup launch day on Saturday if needed. This particular launch will be the 16th for the Falcon 9 booster and the 11th Starlink mission. The Falcon 9's first stage will attempt to land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions in the Atlantic Ocean. SpaceX has launched many orbital missions in 2024, with most dedicated to building the Starlink satellite communications megaconstellation. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. France's left-wing coalition challenges Macron with radical reforms and EU defiance. A coalition of France's left-wing parties has presented a manifesto to undo most of President Emmanuel Macron's 7 years of economic reforms and defy the European Union over fiscal policy. The group, which includes the Socialist Party, the Communists and far-left France Unveiled, aims to reverse the government's pension reform, reinstate the right to retire at 60, raise the minimum wage, and impose an extra tax on the profits of certain industrial firms. The coalition's leaders claim they will finance these ambitious plans by taking from the pockets of those who have the means to give. If elected, the coalition plans to refuse the EU's fiscal pact and propose a European climate and social emergency deal. The alliance also intends to freeze prices of essentials by decree. However, the alliance papers over significant gaps between its members on many policies. If the coalition were to win the election, they would be expected to nominate a prime minister from the group. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has warned that victory by the left-wing alliance would lead to economic collapse and the country's exit from the EU. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Unity and stability in South Africa. ANC, DA, and IFP form coalition government. The African National Congress, ANC, and the Democratic Alliance, DA, have reached a deal to form a unity government in South Africa. This marks a significant shift in the country's political landscape, as the ANC has lost its parliamentary majority for the first time in 30 years. The DA, which has traditionally been the main opposition party, has agreed to support ANC leader Cyril Ramaphosa's re-election as president. The unity government will also include the Inkatha Freedom Party, IFP, a conservative party with a strong Zulu base. The DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, described the deal as a new chapter in our history. The agreement is seen as a step towards promoting racial and ethnic reconciliation in the country, and is likely to be welcomed by the business sector, as it guarantees economic stability and avoids the inclusion of parties advocating for nationalization of land, mines, and banks. This is the news for today, Friday the 14th of June 2024. Putin proposes ceasefire terms as Ukraine rejects offer. World leaders convene in Switzerland. Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered a ceasefire in Ukraine and the start of negotiations if Kyiv withdraws its troops from the territories annexed by Moscow in 2022 and renounces its plans to join NATO. However, Ukraine has dismissed Putin's proposal as manipulative and absurd. This comes as world leaders gather in Switzerland for talks on peace in Ukraine, excluding Moscow. Putin criticized the conference as a distraction and insisted on a resolution to the conflict rather than a frozen state. He called for Ukraine to recognize Crimea as part of Russia and for Western sanctions against Russia to be lifted.